Well, hi. The Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, the state in the Western Africa. Borders on Liberia, Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso and Ghana. From the south it is washed by waters of the Gulf of Guinea of the Atlantic Ocean. Till 1960, colony of France. In the country there are more than 60 ethnic groups. The capital, Yamoussoukro, with the population of 231,000 inhabitants. The main economic and cultural center of the country, Abidjan. About 5.2 million people. Official language, French. The main local languages, Dioula, Trunk, Beda. A national holiday, Day of Declaration of Independence. On August 7, 1960. Till 1986 the name of the state was officially translated into Russian as the Republic Ivory Coast. In October 1985 the Congress of ruling Democratic Party decided that the word Côte d'Ivoire is the place name and he doesn't need to be translated from French. Nevertheless, outside the countries of the former USSR the name of the state is still translated. Mainly flat country covered with the Vlasnitichesky woods in the south and the Vysokotravny savanna in the north. Natural resources: oil, gas, diamonds, manganese, iron ore, cobalt, copper, gold, nickel, tantalum. Climate: equatorial in the south and subequatorial in the north. Average annual temperature, from +26 to +28 C. The annual sums of rainfall, from 1100 mm in the north up to 5000 mm in the south. The country lies in two climatic zones, subequatorial in the north and equatorial in the south. Average monthly temperatures everywhere from +25 to +30 C, but an amount of precipitation and their mode are various. Climate in the southern part of the country, in a zone of the equatorial climate, hot and damp with heavy rains. Temperature fluctuates from 22 to 32 C, and the most heavy rains go from April to July and also in October and November. Here the whole year dominates oceanic air and there is no month without any precipitations, which some in a year reaches 2400. In the north in subequatorial climate, a difference of temperature is sharper. In January about +12 C fall at night, and exceeds +40 C in the summer. Rainfall much less. 1100, 1800. And the dry winter period is pronounced. From December to February in northern areas of the country winds, the bringing hot air and sand from the Sahara blow, sharply reducing visibility and complicating breath. The main rivers, Sassandra, Bandama and Como, however any of them isn't navigable more than on 65, came from the mouth because of numerous thresholds and sharp decrease in water level during the dry period. The tropical climate with 4 climatic seasons in the coastal and central regions and 2 seasons in the northern savanna is characteristic of Côte d'Ivoire. Flora of Côte d'Ivoire changes from the country south where dense tropical forests from evergreen plants. The African lafura, a red basamsky tree, black ebony, etc. grow to the north where the savanna with a light forest and grassy plants prevails. On coast of reservoirs in the south, about the 4th parallel, the zone of the tropical forest from the trees growing in water is located. In this zone cultivate coffee, cocoa, bananas and pineapples. In the west of this zone there is a national park of Taya, one of the last primary woods of Africa recognized by UNESCO World Property. Further on the north, in the center of the country, the damp tropical zone is located. Here domination of the savanna begins, however at this width there are a lot more trees. The savanna is used for cultivation of coffee, and on her northern borders cotton plantations are located. Beginning tropical climate from here defines abundance of big savannas with dense herbs and thickets of bushes. Here cultivate such cultures as a millet, a sorghum, rice, a cotton and a set of garden plants. Many plants of flora of Côte d'Ivoire are of interest as sources of food, technical and medicinal products. Jackals, hyenas, leopards, elephants, chimpanzee, crocodiles, several species of lizards and venomous snakes are found in Côte d'Ivoire. The country has one of the most developed systems of national parks in Western Africa. The National Park of Taya is included in the World Heritage List. The territory of modern Côte d'Ivoire in the first millennium, the Pygmies who were engaged in the conditions of the Stone Age in hunting and collecting occupied B.C. Then there began to move another African people, were the first of them, come in the 11th century from the northwest. In the 15th, 16th centuries the tribes to a Cote, to Raspberry, a Diula, etc., which pushed aside came from the north. At the beginning of the 18th century to a Cote created the state Congo, which became important shopping center and the center of distribution of Islam in Western Africa. For the first time Europeans began to land on the bank of modern Côte d'Ivoire in the 15th century. It were Portuguese, Dutches, Danes. Portuguese were the first, in the 1468 years. Europeans bought ivory, gold, slaves from natives. The French missionaries who landed there in 1637 became the first settlers from Europe. Their pioneer settlement was soon destroyed by natives. In half a century, in 1687, the new French mission was created, this time at armed security forces. At the beginning of the 18th century the French tried to found 2 more settlements on the coast, but they existed some years. The French were engaged in development of Ivory Coast since 1842 again. They restored a Fort Grand Bassam on the coast near present Abidjan, and by 1846 established the protectorate practically over all coastal tribes. In depth of the country the French began to move ahead since 1887. Within 2 years the French signed contracts with the majority of tribes from the coast to modern northern border of the country. In 1892 borders with Liberia, in 1893 with the British colony Gold Coast, modern Ghana, were established. In 1893 Ivory Coast was allocated in separate French colony from the structure of colony Senegal, and in 1895 Est was included in structure of the French Western Africa. During the colonial period the French began to develop production of export cultures there. Coffee, cocoa, bananas and others. And also to mine diamonds, gold, manganese ore, developed forest riches. The French were engaged in development of infrastructure, in particular construction iron and highways, seaports. In October 1946, the status of the overseas territory of France was provided to Ivory Coast. The General Council of the territory was created. In March 1958, the Autonomous Republic Ivory Coast was proclaimed. On August 7, 1960, independence of the country was declared. The leader of Democratic Party of Youth-Bwanya became its president. DD became ruling and only party. The principle of inviolability of a private property was proclaimed. The country continued to remain an agrarian and raw appendage of France. However, to the African measures, her economy was in good condition. Rates of economic growth reached 11% a year. Ivory Coast in 1979 became the world leader in production of cocoa beans. However, achievements in this area leaned on a successful environment and a combination of presence of the qualified managers, foreign investments, and a large number of cheap working hands, generally guest workers from neighboring countries. However, in the 1980th years of the price of coffee and cocoa in the world markets fell. In 1982-1983 the country was comprehended by a cruel drought. Economic downturn began. By the end of the 1980th years, the indicator of an external debt per capita exceeded a similar indicator of all countries of Africa, except Nigeria. Under pressure of the public Youth-Bwanya, I made political concessions. I legalized alternative ruling political parties. I initiated electoral process, and in 1990 it was elected the president. In 1993 he died, and the country was led long ago by Henry Konan Bedier, who was considered as his successor. In 1995 the Forum Concerning Investments into National Economy, in which also the Russian companies participated, took place. In the late 90s the political instability amplified. Bedier had a strong contender, Alassane Ouattara. He was born in the territory of Cote d'Ivoire. His parents was from Burkina Faso, but subsequently obtained Ivorian citizenship. Whereas under the constitution of the country only that candidate who has both parents Ivorians on the birth but not on naturalization can apply for a post of the president. Thus, all people born in mixed marriages are excluded from possible fight for the presidency. This circumstance aggravated already being outlined split of society on ethnic sign. Madam, from a third to a half of the population of the country, the persons of foreign origin which were generally working earlier in the agriculture which fell because of the worsened economic environment into decay. On December 25, 1999 in the country there was a military coup which organizer Robert Guy, the former army officer, held presidential elections marked by jugglings and Massachusetts riots in 2000. Officially the leader of opposition Laurent Gbagbo was recognized as the winner of elections. On September 19, 2002 in Abidjan against it the military mutiny which was organized by Robert Guy was made. During the mutiny, Guy and also the Minister of Internal Affairs of the country Emile Bogaduda were killed. The mutiny was suppressed but served as the beginning of civil war between the political groups representing the north and the south of the country. Patriotic Forces Côte d'Ivoire, led by Guillaume Coulibaly Soro, were the main insurgent group of the north, probably the enjoying support of the government of Burkina Faso. Besides, in the east of the country other groups worked. France. Operations Licorne was on Gbagbo's side. Under the pretext of protection of the numerous European population of the country. and helped the president the armed forces. Also, troops from the neighboring African countries were sent to Cote d'Ivoire, including from Nigeria. In 2003, between authorities and insurgents, the agreement on the termination of collisions was reached. However, the situation continued to remain unstable. The government controlled only the country south. The strong peace agreement managed to be signed only in the spring of 2007. At the end of 2010 in Côte d'Ivoire there took place presidential elections which developed into an acute political crisis and, as a result, civil war. The international organizations recorded numerous human rights violations on both sides. Several hundreds of people died. During joint operation of the Union and the French troops, Laurent Gbagbo was stripped of power. Alassane Ouattara became the new president. Côte d'Ivoire, the presidential republic. The president of the country is elected by direct vote for a period of 5 years with a possibility of re-election once. He has all completeness of executive power, appoints and discharges the prime minister. The president possesses a legislative initiative along with two-chamber parliament. According to Economist Intelligence Unit, the country in 2018 was classified under the Index of Democracy as the hybrid mode. Since 2011, Côte d'Ivoire it was administratively divided into 12 districts and 2 autonomous city areas. Districts are divided into 31 regions, and regions are divided into 108 departments. Departments are subdivided into 510. In certain cases, several villages are organized to communes. Autonomous areas aren't divided into areas, but they support departments, superfectura, communes. Population -27,481,086. A population census of 2020. Annual gain -2.26%. A census of 2020. Birth rate -29.1 for 100. Fertility -3. 67 births only women, infantile mortality -59.1 on 100 births. A census of 2020. Mortality -7.9 for 100. A census of 2020. Average life expectancy -59 years at men, 64 years is at women. A census of 2020. Contamination, a virus of an immunodeficiency. HIV -2.6%. Assessment of 2018. Literacy -54% of men, 41% of women. Assessment of 2018. Urban population -51.7%. In 2020. Ethnic structure, Okana. Defenses, a trunk, etc. 28.9%. Lobby. 16.1%. Northern to a cunt of 14.5%. Crew 8.5%. Southern to a cunt. It is given, etc. 6.9%. Other 25.1%. including about 100,000 Arabs and about 14,000 French. Assessment of 2014. Languages: French. Official. About 60 African languages, from them the most widespread, Diaula, is language of intertribal communication. Religions: Muslims of 42.9%, Catholics of 17.2%, Evangelists of 11.8%, Methodologists of 1.7%, other Christians of 3.2%, Animists of 3.6%, Native cults of 0.5%, Atheists of 19.1%. Christians are presented by Catholics, Orthodox Christians and Protestants. Generally Pentecostals from the Assemblies of God, Methodologists, Adventists. From foreign migrants -70% of Muslims and 20% of Christians. Assessment for 2008. Modern Ivorian literature is presented by novelists Zosetta Bondio, Tanella Boni, Amadou Kuruma. Children's writers: Veronica Tozzo, authors of graphic novels. Margarita Abiu. Playwrights: Werner Binland-Dadi. Authors from Cote d'Ivoire write both in French, and in many other languages, and in the creativity many use the post-colonial theory, discussing the history of the country and its social problems. In the country, the National Library of Cote d'Ivoire functions. In 1968, about 80% of the population were illiterate. At elementary schools studied 353.7 man. 1968. 5 million. 1980. By 2012, 94.2% of children attended elementary school. In 2012, the high school was attended by 39% of children. In 2020, 60.3% of men were competent, but there were huge gaps in education for women, only 38.6% from them attended school. Many children from poor families from 6 to 10 years didn't attend school. At the end of 1980, the release of national school textbooks, as which basis the French school textbooks to which chapters about local customs and values were added were taken began. Big progress since obtaining independence happened in the higher education. If in 1969 there was one university in Abidjan at which 4 faculties 1067 students studied, then in 1987 at the university persons, including 3,200 women studied. In 2020 there were 3 universities. In Abidjan, Baek and Yamoussoukro. The highest education owns 4% of the population. The number of students catastrophically decreased as a result of violence and political uncertainty in 2010. Since 2009, a new structure of the higher education similar to the Bologna system of degrees works. University of Félix Houphouët-Boigny. The highest institute of technology of Côte d'Ivoire. Catholic University of the Western Africa. Advantages: well-developed agriculture. The important producer of cocoa. The first place in the world. And coffee. The 14th place in the world. Rather good infrastructure. The growing oil and gas industry, considerable foreign investments. Favorable redistribution of debts. Weaknesses. Instability. Lack of investments into education. Strong dependence on cocoa and coffee. About a quarter of GDP of the country arrives from export of cocoa beans and coffee. Hard illegal child labor on plantations. On average, national economy for the last years shows sustained economic growth in 2.53% a year. Minus inflation. And GDP per capita in Cote d'Ivoire in 2009 equaled $1,700. That is quite high by the standards of Black Africa. The 15th place in the region. It is lower than the level of poverty, minus 42% of the population in 2006. About 70% of the active population of the country are engaged in agriculture. The products of this sector of economy give more than 60% of export receipts in the budget. Cote d'Ivoire is the exporter of palm oil and natural rubber, largest in Africa. Besides coffee and cocoa, bananas, cotton, and sugarcane, tobacco belong to the main export cultures. Also, cultivation of a coconut palm, peanut is developed. Now Cote d'Ivoire is one of the main exporters of pineapples to Russia. In forests, preparations of valuable breeds of wood, including a black ebony tree, collecting juice of a heavy are conducted. For production of rubber. For agricultural needs, sheep, goats get divorced. Trade catch of fish is conducted. Oil and gas are extracted generally on the continental shelf. Besides, fields of nickel, manganese and iron ores and also diamonds and gold are developed. In national economy, the French capital is of great importance. Among the largest French corporations in Cote d'Ivoire, total production and oil refining. Electricité de France. Power. Michelin. Production of tires. Lafarge. Production of building materials. Transda/Set and Bake. Construction. Are presented to France Telecom. Telecommunication. Castel Group An. Production of beer and drinks. Bean Paribas, Credit Agricole/by Credit Lyonnais and Société Générale. Financial services. At the country there are also American companies, ExxonMobil. Oil production. Citibank and J. Morgan Chase. Financial services. British companies, Royal Dutch Shell. Oil production. Unilever. Production of food and household chemicals. And Barclays. Financial services. Swiss companies, Nestlé. Production of coffee. And Holcim. Production of building materials. Indian companies, Tata Steel. Metallurgy. And Oil and Natural Gas Corporation. Oil production. Export $10.3 billion cocoa beans. 37%. And other cocoa products, rubber and rubber, 11%. Fruit oil and oil products, gold, coffee, bananas, fruit and nuts. The main buyers, the Netherlands 15%, the USA 12%, France 9%, Germany 7.1%, Belgium and Luxembourg 7.1%. Import $8.37 billion crude oil, 9%. And oil products. Industrial goods. Machines and the equipment -16.8%, chemical goods, including drugs -11.2%, metals -7.2%. Food. Generally rice -4.1%, fish -3.4% and wheat -1.6%, and also drinks, tobacco products and products of livestock production. The main suppliers, China 20%, France 16%, Nigeria 8.1%, India 6.3%. The Act enters into the International Organization of the Countries. The State Broadcasting Company RT. Radiodiffusion Television Ivoirienne, Ivoirski Broadcasting and Television. This created on October 26, 1962, the Radio Cote d'Ivoire radio station was at the same time started. On August 7, RT started the TV channel of the same name. On December 9, 1983, the Canal 2 TV channel, RT TV channel, was renamed into La Première. On November 11, 1991, RT started Frequence 2 radio station. Control over compliance with laws about media exercises the highest control of audiovisual communication. Haute Autorité de la Communication Audiovisuelle is appointed Council of Ministers. Till 2011, National Council of Audiovisual Communication. Conseil National de la Communication Audiovisuelle. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.